in order to liberate those people to get them home to Ukraine and to ease their time in illegal detention. Two things we can do. And firstly, I'm gonna shortly introduce myself. So my name is Liudymyla. I am from Ukraine, from Ternopil. I am the Rebuild Ukraine ambassador of the second mandate. I was working last year. I was working over the topic of preservation and promotion of indigenous cultures. At the same time, I was the partnership manager for projects on indigenous cultures such as Kremlin or Crimean Sprout. And right now, I'm working on the different topic on the tech-driven economic development, but I'm still pretty much engaged in the topic of indigenous people, indigenous cultures, working with young people, with Crimean Tatar young people, um, and just generally promoting the culture myself without the mandate. Because I really, even though I have never been to Crimea, I really like the region. Even the background you see here is it's somewhere in Crimea. Okay, at the same time, I'm the national coordinator of Understand Europe Ukraine. We do educational trainings. Yeah, on European Union and media literacy, on active citizenship, active participation. And lastly, I'm the laureate of the top five best cases of youth diplomacy, which is the checklist you're gonna see at the end of our meeting. So yeah, and the plan for the webinar. Firstly, I would really love to give you the context on the situation on different cases. Let's say why young people are detained, because these reasons are not the reasons. They are, let's say, just um, illegal causes. Uh, I'm gonna also tell you personal stories of political prisoners, of a few people you see, whose names you see here, of Ziza, Nasiba Saidova, and Abbas Kurtamed. And the action required, or what can you do practically in order to help those young people. Okay, so firstly, I found very cool video which will definitely explain it way better visually than I would do so. So I just really hope that it's gonna work out. And it pretty much and very briefly gives all the context about what's going on in Crimea generally, not only with the young political prisoners, but situation with political prisoners in general. Um, or we can do it. Yeah.
Crimean nerve.
Do you see? Wait. No, it doesn't work this way. Oi. I'm so sorry. I am very bad with technicalities. Okay, but still, wait a
And
second.
citizen journalist Irina.
You have seen some movement on the video, right? Okay, I've seen a like.
Yes.
Amazing. So I'm gonna start the video, and well, small, but still you will see the video. I'll turn off the context, the subtitles.
Crimean nurse and citizen journalist Irina Danilovich did not return home after work on April 29, 2022. Later, her parents learned that the woman was being held in a pre-trial detention center. The Russians accused her of manufacturing and storing explosives and sentenced her to almost 7 years in prison. Irina Danilovich became one of the hundreds of Crimean political prisoners held by the Russian Federation. Russian forces have been illegally detaining and prosecuting residents of Crimea since the occupation of the peninsula. Ukrainians were illegally convicted of fabricated criminal cases of espionage, terrorism, extremism, and other similar crimes, as in the case of Irina Danilovich. FSB officers kidnapped her from a bus stop in Koktebel when she was returning home from work. For almost 2 weeks, families searched for her in hospitals, morgues, and pre-trial detention centers. During this time, she was tortured and arrested for 2 months. After the verdict, she was transferred to a penal colony in the city of Zelenakumsk in Russia. Bronislav Danilovich, Irina's father, asked the Russians to move her closer to Crimea, since he and Irina's mother are elderly people, and it is difficult for them to come to see their daughter. However, these requests were rejected. As a result, Irina's father recently died in Crimea without seeing his daughter. Russia uses the following methods of pressure on most political prisoners, regularly transferring them from one place of detention to another, often far from their homes. Moreover, Russian authorities frequently limit communication between prisoners and their families. Some are banned from using phones for various reasons, and letters go through the reviewing procedure for weeks or even months. After the beatings in the FSB office in the first 2 weeks of her disappearance, Irina began to suffer from pain in her left ear and constant noise. In almost 2.5 years, Irina was never fully examined by doctors. Meanwhile, the woman became completely deaf in her left ear. The occupiers treat all political prisoners with the same indifference. They are denied medical care and treatment, even in critical cases.
Когда мне прихватывает сердечная боль, это случается вечером или ночью, я не могу дозваться фельдшера. Что, хотите, чтобы меня впервые увидели мертвым на носилках? Вы не боитесь ответственности? Перед законом, перед Богом, в конце концов.
In early 2023, 2 political prisoners, Jamil Hafarov and Konstantin Shiring, died in Russian captivity due to a lack of proper and timely medical assistance. Currently, 65 political prisoners in Russia have serious health conditions and need treatment. For 10 years, 350 people have been detained or persecuted in criminal cases in occupied Crimea. 217 of them are Crimean Tatars. At the 10 years of the war, only 10 political prisoners of Crimea were released from prisons due to exchanges between Russia and Ukraine. This became possible thanks to constant and joint pressure on Russia from other countries, politicians, diplomats, and human rights defenders.
Okay, so thank you so much for watching. And here in the video, on the example of story of Irina Danilovich, you might see all the, I would say, I would say almost all the, like almost everything what political prisoners in Crimea experience, what they face. Uh, they are being transferred very, very far from their homes, from, for example, from Crimea to somewhere very far in Siberia. The way they are treated or not treated, if we're talking medically, if we're talking about medical treatment. Um, so yeah, and at the same time, it was also mentioned that the communication is very limited. Also, the communication is limited with the religious representatives. In Crimea, it's mostly imams, so it's pretty much, let's say, not possible to meet imam, even though you need so. And if we talk numbers, if we talk about young people specifically, as for now, and I would also underline officially, what we officially known, what officially recorded, they said that like 300 people, around 300, 350, are illegally detained. But that's only official numbers we know, because there's always a possibility of the cases we don't know and the cases which are not recorded. And out of these 350, we see 52 young people who became the victims of the political repression. And yeah, here you can see a link, and afterwards, I believe we'll send you the presentation. You can check the links, you can read, or you can read more. And here, when we talk about young people, the, let's say, the proportion of indigenous peoples, Crimean Tatars and non-Crimean Tatars, is even higher. It's 32 out of 52, which is way higher than among general numbers. And mostly when young people are sentenced illegally, uh, it's about extremism and terrorism. And the most common charges are listed here. It's either participation in terrorist organization, violent seizure of power, or extremist organization. What's interesting is that if they talk about participation in terrorist organization, mostly it means the organization which is connected to Islam, which is not considered terrorist in anywhere in the world but Russia, um, which is very interesting if we're talking about Russia and, let's say, about their values which they promote. And the legal matters, because when we are talking about political prisoners, sometimes people think like, okay, why can't we just do kind of the swap of people? Ukrainians give Russians to Russia, and Russians give Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians to Ukraine. Uh, yes, but there is a law. And sometimes it's very complicated in this case. And first obstacle which happens is the fact that after the illegal occupation, Russia automatically proclaimed all the Crimeans, so indigenous peoples, not indigenous peoples, everyone, um, citizens of Russia. And it was a little to no chance of rejecting the citizenships. Just for the context, it was around 250 places in all around Crimea to accept and not to accept, but to even make the process of getting Russian citizenship faster to these official points of Russian documentation. But there were only 8 points where you can reject Russian citizenship, but uh, you would have put yourself and your family under the threat if people do that. Second thing is the fact that Ukraine doesn't recognize Russian citizenship of Crimeans. Ukraine consider that illegal. And Ukraine counts people in Crimea as Ukrainian citizens. But still, Russia consider them as Russian citizens. And Russia has such a concept that they don't exchange its own citizens. So, like, okay, you give us Russian citizens, but in return, you want Russian citizens. Why do you want Russian citizens? And it causes a big, big problem. For example, there are some political prisoners, ex-political prisoners, such as, for example, Liudymyla Umerova, who had Ukrainian citizenship. And it was a bit easier legally to free her, as, again, she had Ukrainian citizenship and was considered a Ukrainian citizen. And as we mentioned, Linya, just a minute ago, there is still a light in the end of the tunnel. The fact that the ex-political prisoners who were already freed, when they are liberated, when they return home, they don't just keep living their casual lives, but they still fight for the human right globally. And especially the people who are unlawfully detained to be back to Ukraine. You might see some photos of like with flowers when she was back from illegal detention, back to Ukraine. The photos from the UN, from the European Parliament, where she spoke about her experience and real cases what Russia is doing to political prisoners. And the last photo, which is small here, but I can just for the sake of presentation show it, make it a bit bigger. So you might see like if Linie with wearing the white shirt here, having the blue flag with this yellow symbol, which is called Tamha, the symbol of Crimean Tatars. You might also see a few other people who are Ukrainian human rights defenders, and on the background a lot of Syrian flags. As I'm not sure if right now, but just 2 days ago, all of them, including Linie, they were in Syria, in Damascus, to show the solidarity to Syrian people and support as both of our peoples, Ukrainians and Syrians, and well, and also indigenous peoples of Ukraine, of course, that we have similar experiences, both at the point of political prisoners and the fact who made who prisoners. But as we started to talk about personalities, I would also emphasize on the fact that very, very important thing for us is to know the faces and not only, let's say, 300 political prisoners or 200 of them indigenous peoples, not only the numbers, but also individual like personalities, identities. Who are these people? And I would start with Bohdan Ziza, who is an artist, and he's also called the voice of Crimean resistance. Right now he's 31, still young person, and if we talk about him as just a regular person telling his story, firstly, Bohdan was the barista when he was in university, and a bit later, as regular students, he was just studying, working in Akhmedjit in Simferopol, if I'm not being mistaken. But generally, his passion was photography, videography, 3D modeling, sports. He really liked hiking, especially in Crimea, in Ayudar, in other mountains in Crimea, as Crimea is a pretty unique land with both sea and mountains on the same horizon. Yeah, he was also engaged in street art, in parkour, in poetry. He was writing his own poetry, and blogging. Perhaps we might find his blogs online, but I'm not sure about this. He was raised with grandma only. She was shaping his childhood, and she took care about him. But what's very sad that despite the fact that Bohdan was illegally detained, he was again behind the bars. Uh, he was in a very, very critical situation, but what he was writing in the letters to his closed ones, that he regrets the fact that he cannot support his grandma. So he was not thinking about himself, but he was like, grandma, the person who cared about them, who babied them all his childhood, all his teenage years. He was thinking about her and not about himself, despite the fact of being held in Vladimirsky Central in Russia, which is one of the toughest prisons in Russia. Also, during the illegal detention, it was the case when Bogdan was offered a prison job, as sometimes is the case for the prisoners. Same for political prisoners, but he refused. He refused to take the job as he didn't want to sponsor the Russian war of aggression. As he was saying that, okay, I am getting the job, but still, from this job, I'm gonna pay taxes to Russia, and these taxes will be sponsoring the drones, the missiles, which are gonna target my Ukrainian cities. So I won't, I won't do that. I refuse to take the job. And as for now, as I said, he is illegally detained in Vladimirsky Central in Vladimir in Russia. Yeah, for over 2 years. Yep. And as you might see here, the pretty picture with a heart. So this year, one of Ukrainian singers, he wrote the song which is called Voice. The song which is dedicated to all the illegally imprisoned people by Russia. But it was from the story about Bogdan. I would put it to the links, to all the links we're gonna send at the end. So yeah. So eventually you're gonna get all the links for the songs, for everything else. And also here is unfortunately only in Ukrainian, but a letter from Bogdan, in which he explained why he doesn't want to take the job. As he was saying, again, like I don't want to sponsor the war against my own country, and I don't want to exchange some mere goods which I'm gonna receive because of this salary in return for the death of my people. So that's the story about Bodan, who is one of the most well-known political prisoners. The second person, you might have read about her in the description for the seminar. Uh, so this is Nasiba Saidova. She is pedagogy student and a nursery teacher. She has just a bit more than a month ago turned 19. So I believe she is way younger than, maybe not way, but she's younger than most of the people who are listening right now, or she's the same age. And you might see that there is not that much information about her. So the only things we know about her is the fact that she was the student and she was the teacher in Bağçasaray. She got married a few months ago, and despite the arrest, because the information about her is pretty complicated to find online, and generally anywhere. Despite the fact that she got arrested and she is in the pretrial detention center, she still keeps reading the literature, and she wants to continue practicing religious practices. But again, it's not possible in most of the time. Even despite the fact that you might see that she's the daughter of Imam, but it's not possible. And what's also the case? Why we don't have that much information and why is it that complicated to find it? The people in Crimea mostly they like this the pages the even when they have the pages in social media, they are pretty much private in order not to get, let's say, any even thoughts that they might be either pro-Ukrainian or anti-Russia or anything, just as neutral as possible, as private as possible. So sometimes even the private life, which is neutral politically, might be closed because of the fear. And again, and the case she was detained for is the case about participation in terrorist organizations. The case that I told in the very beginning, the fact that she was the thought that she was also in that in Hizb ut-Tahrir, the organization which is considered terrorists in the Russia. Yeah, okay, and I'm so sorry that I didn't mention it in the very beginning, but in case someone has any questions, you can just raise your hand and ask during the presentation even. It's totally okay. Yep. Okay, and the third story, the story I know the most, is the story of Abbas Kurtamed. I was working a lot with his case. Um, Me and my organization, we were writing a lot of the letters to him. When I was at different events, I was promoting the idea of writing him letters, as it's possible to get an answer. Not likely, as emotionally, it's very complicated to handle being in the prison and somehow uh, have your emotional state at some level and still um, have emotional capacity to answer to people with all the generosity, all the sincere you. Uh, but yeah, so who is Abbas? Abbas is a poet and also educational volunteer. He is 23. His birthday just a day a day earlier than mine. So since the early childhood, he was dreaming of becoming an actor in Crimean Tatar films. And eventually he didn't, or at least until his illegal detention, he didn't have any experience in that. Uh, but he had a lot of different, let's say, things he liked. So in the secondary school, he really liked math, which is not that connected to the fact of being an actor, and he really liked music. But at 16, he moved to Turkey and learned to learn Turkish language. And just for the context, in Turkey there is a big diaspora of Crimean Tatars, especially in Eskişehir, um, in the west of the country, with a big diaspora where they have a lot of cultural projects, cultural things. Um, so yeah, but despite the fact that he was in another country, still in another country, despite the fact of being of living in the diaspora city, he still experienced everything Turkish around. Despite that, he strengthened his love to Crimean Tatar culture and language. And after returning to Ukraine, he settled in Odessa, in the south of Ukraine, where he was working in IT. But at the same time, he was also volunteering as the teacher of Crimean Tatar language. So I believe if life happened differently and if he was not illegally detained, he might have been here with us listening to some other topic, and just, yeah, being, I don't know, being the guy, who you just randomly meet when you go to some random project and be like, yo, how was your life? We haven't met since, I guess, since some seminar in Chernihiv or somewhere in Europe. How was your life since then? I remember you really liked these things. Do you like them still? Because I brought it. He might have been this person, but life happened differently. And right now we're not yapping with him about some very random life things, but we're talking about him through the prism of the person who is illegally detained by Russia. And after the start of the full-scale invasion from Odessa, he moved to Lviv. He still worked in IT, but despite the fact of himself being IDP or internally displaced person, he still managed to find time and to help other people who were displaced. He was let's say he had a very big heart towards others, despite the fact that he was also not in the best position, in the best condition. And even being detained, he still continues to write poems. He even has the nickname, and the nickname. Wait, I'll just see because I didn't put it. And with a nickname Hamdan. Yep. So and also you might find some of his poems online. On the next slide, I put his poem, the poem from the last year, about Crimea, about people in Crimea. I'm so sorry for the translation, as it's not the professional lyric translation, but rather amateur me translation. Uh, but I really hope that you will catch the sense of the poem. I might make it a bit. Could I do that a bit bigger? Yes, I can do. I can make it a bit bigger. So you might see the text, and all of the spirit in which he wrote about his land, and how he was detained, why he was detained. So basically, as I said, he was based in Lviv. But in 2022, he decided to to go to Kherson region where he was born, as he was not born in Crimea. He's Crimean Tatar, but he was born in the south of Kherson region. He decided to go and check on the people home, check on the house, and he was stolen by Russians. When he was on that territory, he was brave enough to go to the occupied territory, and he was stolen back there. And the reason why not the reason, but what Russians assumed him for, is the fact is him financing the terrorist organization. By terrorist organization, they meant the battalion of Nemanchely Bichekhan within Ukrainian armed forces. Um, but what was that in reality? So, in fact, Apaz just lent 500 hryvnia slash more or less 10 euro to his friend who perhaps was the part of that battalion. But eventually, no one knows if that's true, if that friend was in the Manchli Bijahan battalion, and what's more important, if Appas knew that his friend in this battalion. And at first, Appas was in Crimea, but then they changed the places where he was. So at first, it was again Vladimirsky Central, one of the toughest prisons in Russia, and eventually they replaced him to the place where he is right now, in Pskov region, I believe, the region which is close to, I believe it's Latvia, not very far from Latvia.
Estonia.
I'm sorry?
Estonia.
Estonia, or maybe close to Estonia. It's I might be mistaken with this geography. For me, for me, it's very, very weird to look at the Russian map from not from the perspective where Ukraine is in the center and Russia is somewhere here, but to go up. I believe it's somewhere close to the western border. That's what I
But
might be for sure.
still like eastern well, I'm lack of translation. It's just my hometown, that's why I'm standing up. Sorry.
Uh,
It's somewhere close to the border with Estonia, but also not far from Latvia, about like 40
yes.
minutes away. So
Yes.
so like between St. Petersburg and Estonia.
Thank you so much for clarification. Again, my geography of Russia
Sorry
is
for
pretty,
interrupting.
yeah. My geography of Russia is way better when it comes to pointing where is Belgorod and cities on the border with Ukraine. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
but in what close to us?
Yes.
I'm lacking the knowledge of all other all other parts. So
Okay, but thank you so much for clarification.
yes, thank you. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yep, you will again see more. You will read you might read the poem after the webinar when we'll send you the presentation. And some more details about a past that during the illegal detention, as I mentioned, he keeps writing poems. The previous poem was written last year when he was already detained, and he also is learning to play guitar. And he said that this thing is one of the most important thing um, which keeps his emotional and mental level on some kind of adequate level, let's say it in this way. But on also, you might have seen if you looked at the poem that he mentions a lot of that it has pretty much a lot of religious mentions. And he strengthened in his belief being in illegal detention. But still, he didn't have any opportunity to meet an imam. As for most of the political prisoners, there is not much chance to meet someone face to face, someone in prison. It's not the case mostly. But still, also in letters, beside only poems, he writes about some close ones. Uh, Shows some care. I mentioned about Lenier in the very beginning. So when at the same time he and her, when they were both imprisoned, well, in different places, but still, they were texting each other. And from the letters to some other people, he found out that Lenier is free. Lenier is in Ukraine. He asked a lot about her. How is she doing? How is the life going? And generally, which shows how kind-hearted and empathetic he was. And again, as I mentioned in the very beginning, he is illegally detained in Pskov region right now, close to Estonia. So yeah. And I told you three stories, more or less detailed, but they're way more untold stories because of, again, the fact that a lot of people in Crimea, firstly, they don't have a lot of private information. As for example, a lot of us, we have pretty open profiles in Instagram, in other social media, but that's not the case for people in Crimea, mostly again due to the security measures. And for example, today I really, really wanted to tell you about Khatija Buyukchan, but I lacked information about her. As her case is, by the way, a bit different with cases of some other people. For example, Bogdan. Well, he was detained after he poured some the things which you paint with, the colorful things you paint with, on the door of one of the administrational buildings in Crimea. He was arrested right after that. But it was just yellow and blue colors. Nasiba, Russian occupational forces, they went to her house to, let's say, look for something dangerous. With Abbas, he went to, let's say, newly occupied territories. But case of Hatice is a bit different as she is in Crimea without any political activity, without occupational forces looking through her house. She just this spring she just went on the bus from Eski Kırım to Akmejit, or widely known as Simferopol. But eventually she didn't have her stop in Simferopol, and she was just stolen by occupational forces. And until just recently, we might have written the letters to her. What does that mean? That she got her official status, all these articles and stuff, but a few months she was in the state when she could not be reached. So it was no contact with her. Not even in-person contact, but no contact with her. Perhaps for the very, very close relatives, but that's also the question. Same also for Fevziya Osmanova. Fevziya was illegally detained together with Nasiba in different places, but in the same timeline on October 15 and 16. And it's also not much information about her to tell about her as about the person. The only thing which is known that she was working in some supermarket. Not much information known. For Hadija, I couldn't find anything. Uh, Same for Eskender. So even if you want to see the faces, it's very, very complicated. But that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about them to see that these are not the numbers. War is not the numbers. Occupation is not the numbers. But these are the people. These are the faces. These are the families. These are stories, sometimes untold stories, which I really hope one day we will know. Okay, so any questions so far about people, about some general cases? I would be very happy to answer if there is some, if there are some. In case there are no,
I have a question. I haven't found how could I raise my hand? Okay, I'm raising my hand.
yep.
Yeah, I just have a question and a proposition at the same time. Maybe it's gonna be mentioned in the presentation later. I'm sure it's gonna be mentioned, but I'm gonna highlight it that there is or are organizations to actually write letters to those who have been in prison. So I would love you to actually recommend them to people and tell how could you do it, because it's not very complicated process, but there are several points to keep in mind. So that's gonna be amazing because we've already heard a lot of stories, and I don't know, my empathetic soul says me that tomorrow evening when I'm gonna be free, I'm just gonna sit and try to write a letter and try to support somebody because we have, like living our basic lives, we don't even understand how much of those basic things other people are deprived of. So they do not have a right to education, they do not have a right to basic healthcare, right to movements, nothing. So those people who have been detained and arrested as well, they do not have it. We do have it, so we could support them and give that positive emotions to them. Yeah, and
Yes.
that's very moving, really. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. What you emphasize is yes, yes, definitely. And there are again, and the conditions the people are in, and like very small fact about Nasiba, which I also didn't mention, that like uh, they are like she and other people in the place where she is, they sleep on the wet mattresses. So that's at some point it seems very like very small fact, but imagine like every night. I remember on the pre on last weekend I was traveling from Kyiv to Ternopil, and a lot of people were complaining a lot about just some it was not that like wet. It was just a bit wet. Um Things to cover pillows, the cases for pillows, the cases for everything. People were complaining a lot, but imagine when your mattress is like soaking with water because it was soaking. And you sleep like that for more than a month because Nasiba is arrested, is illegally detained for more than a month. Um, So yeah, and again, that's I would also agree with the fact that it's very hard to imagine, and like I would also say from my personal experience, even though I live in Ukraine, I live in, if I may call it, more or less safe place in Ternopil. But recently I realized that I haven't felt. I didn't know what is this. I didn't know. I didn't feel until the moment when you perhaps have seen online the building which was half destroyed in Ternopil. It was like, and it was on my street. It was like 200 meters across. On that morning, I believe I was a bit more. I was closer to understand the realities I live in. The whole day I was going here and there in frustration. Um, but yeah, and getting crazy because I didn't have any connection to the world for the entire day because no electricity, no light, no anything. And it's not because no electricity, but because I didn't have communication with the world. And the last thing I have seen online before it disappeared that such attack might happen in next 48 hours. Uh, so yeah, so I would definitely agree that none of us can understand that, and the least, the smallest thing which we might do without any resources, financial or other, with just some empathy, is to write a support letter. And of course, I will I will mention about that, and we will talk about it. I will mention about that. We will talk about it for a bit, and I will afterwards I will send more details because at some point for us it's a bit easier to send letters to, let's say, some certain people. For some other people it's a bit more complicated. And I would also say that this campaign of writing the letters is very, very popular. I believe it happened already twice in the European Parliament. I've seen some of the people I know who were trainees in the European Parliament. They were like, okay, today I'm finishing my day at 9 p.m. and I have these 50 letters. Guess where I'm sending it? And next story she was like, yay, yeah, that's like the letters to the political prisoners. People actually care, and campaign was successful because like over 50 letters. So yeah, any other questions so far? Because if no, we will move on. Okay, then we'll move on. So what's next? Firstly, the stories are not meant to discourage the fact that they were just the human beings, but they ended up in such horrible conditions, but rather for you to learn more about those people, to feel like they're just as simple as me or you or any other person in the room, and help them stand behind the bar and just help them. So eventually they will stand not behind the bars, but behind the podiums, uh, not standing waiting for something, but standing behind the podium, teaching the languages and reading poems to us. Because I really hope one day that's gonna happen, and all of our efforts are gonna make the process faster. And while I was also speaking with the human rights defenders, what was the thing that the main goals is the first, the alleviation of illegal detention conditions, so making the life of the people easier. And the second is liberation itself, which for me, when I started working with it, was even complicated um, to pronounce, to voice, honestly, as it felt so it felt so far. So firstly, what I'm gonna say is follow the news. How are they going? How are they doing? How are the people doing? Because as it was mentioned in video, the places of detentions are changing. And people are separated. For example, for Apas, at first he was in Crimea or in occupied Kherson region, I'm not sure, but somewhere there. Then he was in Crimea, and he was in Crimea with his father. So his father was also illegally detained. So eventually, his mom ended up alone, being alone without Appa's father and her son. Appa's father stayed in Crimea. He was not moved to any other place, but he stayed in Crimea. He was stayed, and he was, yeah. But Appas, at first, they changed the place of his illegal detention. They changed the place to Vladimirsky Central, to Vladimir in Russia, then to Pskov. in Russia, where he is right now. Second thing, on birthdays, for example, or not only birthdays, but write something about them or repost posts about young people. Firstly, more people know about them, more chance they will write letters, which makes the life of political prisoners way, way easier, at least on the emotional level, because they face not only physical, let's say, pressure and torture, but also the emotional. With music, with just words of the workers of prison. And sometimes the words of just some people with a kind heart really, really helps. And the support letters, which Lila mentioned before, I believe it's the most widely known and the most popular thing, but it has several rules. And the rules are, I will just say a few words about that. So the few rules are, the first thing is being as politically neutral as possible. So you cannot say Crimea will be free, or I don't know, or something will happen with Russia, or glory to Ukraine, or anything else. No. With all the respect, even me, Ukrainian, who would like to say so, uh, if you want the letter to be received, eventually you cannot do that. Because there is a censorship. There is the person or a few people in the prison who are checking the letters. So you must also know that your letter will be read by someone in the prison before it will be received. And same with the answer, because sometimes you might get an answer. The answer of the person who is illegally detained will also be checked by a censor. That's very important. Also, what might not be that obvious is the fact that poems are, you should be very careful, let's say, with poems. Because some censors might think that you have some hidden senses, some hidden things. So be very, very careful about that. Other things. But you can draw, for example. What else? If you are writing directly, because there are a few cases how you can write it. You can write it through through some NGOs who will translate it and send it eventually. You can send it through the families. For example, you know the family of someone, or you got in contact. Life happened in some way and you got in contact with someone's family. You can do it in these two ways, or you can do it in the way that it was done, by the way, in the European Parliament, that they sent the letters directly to prisons. So it was literally like the envelope, it was like something European Parliament, something, something, and Russian prison, something, something, somewhere, I don't know, Pskov, Vladimir, something else. And I know, for me personally, it sounded a bit interesting, but it works. It works. Yep, and what I would personally say that uh, right now, like I can like that might be very concrete information right now because I will send you the links for social media which you can follow for the news, with posts, with other things, details to where send letters. But what I might tell you for sure that right after this webinar, you can write the letter to a passportamet, and you might either, send it through all the details, all the post details, or you can send it, I hope, to organizers who will forward it to me or to me, and then I will address it through some people I know. It's gonna be way, way quicker. But there's also the case if you write it directly. What's important is to write in Russian. If you don't know Russian, you can just put the letter into the through the translator and send it because the letters accepted are only in Russian. That's I don't know how obvious, but that's the rule. Only in Russian. If you do that through some NGO, I believe they have translators from Ukrainian, from English. They might do that. For example, if you want to write the letter to a pass, you can write it in English, and me and other people we can translate it, which is not a problem at all for us. And what I would advise you to write, mostly, what people in prisons tell to young political prisoners is they put pretty much a pressure like, oh, nobody needs you back home. We're gonna defeat Ukraine soon. The world is gonna burn, and something in that tone. But you might bring just ordinary life and the fact that you support them. For example, hey, I hope, perhaps, I hope you're doing well. How are you doing? My day was a bit interesting because my cat jumps onto my window, and on my window I had my favorite vase with flowers, and my cat just, well, eventually the vase was broken, and I'm very sad about it. But I'm very happy that my cat didn't get injured. I really like cats. Do you like cats? And something like that. I don't know if they, for example, about Apas. I'm not sure if he likes pets, but I think he does like cats, but I'm not sure. So you might do it in this way. You might just bring ordinary life to those people. Just some casual things. Something with homework, for example, that you passed your exams. That, hey, I passed my exams, or oh, I didn't pass my exams, but yes. What do you think about, for example, anthropological interest of one people to other people? What do you think about it? I didn't pass my exam on that. What do you think about it? It sounds weird, but you switch their attention from these heavy emotional things they face every day to something different and to something real. Because, well, at some point they can imagine it, but it's way better when you speak with the real person, with real someone, and when you can have conversation on that. Because sometimes there are answers. I won't say that often, but sometimes there are answers. That's what I might say for sure. Yep, these are more of support, emotional, raising awareness things, but other things which are a bit different and I would say original. So, in Russia, these are such things which are called public monitored commissions or ONK. I forgot the full abbreviation in Russian. But these are the commissions, these are the institutions which are overseeing the conditions which people are in. I was talking with the people who more or less know the structure in prisons, more or less know some practical cases, and what they advise that what you might do is you might bring the face-to-face communication to those people through these ONK. What might we do? We might write them. We might text them. Hey, how is the situation with this person? And just write a diplomatic letter about the fact that, this person is pretty much a believer, let the imam to this person or something like that. It sounds interesting, counting the fact that we're speaking about Russian institutions, but I was also thinking in this way, but nobody tried it. And we might do that. The more letters they get, I believe the more attention they will pay to these letters. So yeah, that's the first thing. Let the real communication in. Let the people speak with real people, not with a piece of paper only. But piece of paper is also very, very important. I'm emphasizing on that again. So the only thing which takes you is just here is an email at this point. And second thing is diplomatic care over the young person. At first I was writing the consul care, but diplomatic generally is better, I would say, because I'm not sure about how other countries are represented in Russia right now. So I would say that from my personal experience. So let's say the person is being held in Vladimir, for example. And we want the world to know about this person. We want this person to have the real communication. And some conversations, some care of diplomats is a good case and is a good thing for that. For example, let's say I am the citizen of country X, for example, country X, and my country X has the consulate, working consulate, in that city in Vladimir, for example. And as the citizen, I write to my consul, hey, there is such person, and you write some story about this person, and with the offer, you might visit it because this, and that. What's also important, why this person should do that? This might be two types of people, either those who know the situation, know the case about Crimean Tatars, about the political prisoners, or, which is more likely, those who believe in the dialogue between Ukraine and Russia. They are not pro-Ukrainian or pro-Russian strongly, but they believe, oh, the dialogue is possible, peace deal, and everything else. You might write that in this way, that, oh, freeing people, liberating people is a very big step in the dialogue, and we might, and you taking care of this person, just going to that person once in a month and talking to that person and share and raising awareness about this person will make sense. Because firstly, that's real communication, which keeps person afloat. Secondly, raising awareness internationally. Thirdly, raising awareness of the not only to the public but also to the diplomatic institutions. For example, my country X consulate and my embassy, they will know what I do, so they will also know about this person. And if my embassy knows that, my MVA might also know that. And perhaps my MVA might do something about it. For example, if this consul is from the country which believes in the dialogue between Ukraine and Russia, embassy sees that, okay, we might also take part in the peace talks. We might, and that might be one of the cool cases for that. Okay, cool. Let's then offer it to the MVA. And MVA, okay, let's talk about political prisoners. So that's the chain. And it just takes the one email from you, which is very interesting. That's the big domino. That's the big chain. But as for me, it really makes sense. So yeah. Okay, these are 5 things from me perhaps someone has some other ideas, something came up to your mind while listening, or someone has questions or something else to say as it's almost the end from me. Some comments, anything. Yep, Angelica. The microphone?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Great. Okay, Liudymyla, thank you very much for this story, for your presentation. It was really inspiring and useful. And while I was listening to you, I was wondering how long have you been researching this topic, because you know pretty a lot. And was there a special reason why you started to delve deeper in this topic? I mean, was it because of full-scale invasion, etc.? So can you tell us more?
Oi, honestly, um, everything like as I said, it's the chain. It's the big, big chain. As it was with as I said with like the diplomatic things, it's the chain. So, back like around 5 years ago, I was just a curious teenager, and I took part in some in event about Crimea. And afterwards, uh, Crimean Tatars, they are different from Ukrainians at the point of religion, at the point of language. The Crimea itself is pretty unique when it comes to frameworks within Ukraine. It has sea, it has mountains. The culture is very different, and I was just a curious teenager. Then I was organizing an event, and we decided to make the committee, to make the group which works over the topic of indigenous peoples. Then, the people who were in this group, they invited me to become the partnership financial manager on their project on Kremlin, which I mentioned in the very beginning. I also I was applying to United World Colleges a few years ago, and one of the people in my group, she was Crimean Tatar who actually lived in Crimea. I know a lot of Crimean Tatars who live in Ukraine, but at that time it was the end of 2021, the beginning of 2022. She was living in Crimea, and once she sent me the video of mountains. She was recording it from the car. She recorded it speaking with her mom, I believe, and I've heard that they were speaking Crimean Tatar. Uh, and the thing is, I was never I knew that there is such thing as Crimean Tatar language, but I didn't know how widespread is it. And I've heard the Crimean Tatar language, and I was like, oh, you actually speak it like on the everyday basis all the time. Wow. I'm like at some point I'm ashamed of not knowing that before. But on the other hand, I'm very happy to hear that. And everything was just very different for me, and I just wanted to explore Ukraine more. What is Ukraine as a big concept of a lot of different people? That's what I would say. And researching, knowing way more about it, that started with Corinne Felicie at the end of 2023. I was reading books. I was following the mission of the president of Ukraine to the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, by the way, which I interned in. I was an intern there last year. I was dealing with communications. I was writing for social media. I was doing some other things. Uh, Yep. So these are some of the reasons. I was also helping with some forums. So I went deeper and deeper because I wanted to know the big picture of Ukraine, because I knew that Ukraine is not just one the country with the same culture, all with the same culture all over the country. There are a lot of different things in different regions, even in different villages. And I was just curious to know what is Ukraine in a big, big perspective and a big, big picture. Um, I also, when I started learning it, by the way, very random fact, I don't know if you know that zebras are natural are not like, let's say, brought to Ukraine, but zebras live in Ukraine actually. On the south of Kherson region, so it's like Kherson, Crimea here, and zebras were living there, like zebras in Ukraine, and I was like, oh, I was just amazed by how diverse Ukraine is, and I wanted to explore it more. And now I understand that if there are no Crimean Tatars, if there are no indigenous peoples, we would not have that big of diversity in this country, and everything would not be complete simply. And the matter of helping them is the matter of all of us Ukrainian citizens to preserve what's Ukrainian as the concept, um, and as the part of as the part of Europe, because Crimean Tatars are also Europeans. To preserve to preserve the beautiful diversity we have, not to be erased under one line. That's what I would say. As right now, like I am finishing reading the book about Crimea, which is called "За перекопом є земля." So it's like there is a land behind the Perekop. Perekop is the city between Kherson and Crimea. I really, really advise it. It's only in Ukrainian as for now. I know that they translate it into Polish, English, and something else soon. Um, yeah, I really, really advise it as this book is about everyday life of people since 1990s as Crimean Tatars after the World War II. They were not allowed to live in Crimea as Russia considered them traitors because they were living under the occupation. Um, yeah, and they were deported from to Central Asia and Siberia, and they were only allowed to go back in 90s. Um, about everyday life since 90s until the Revolution of Dignity, so until 2014. So yeah, I would just say that the book is very cool because it's about everyday life of people. And my interest is, let's say, as they say it in the book, anthropological interest. And the interest of preserving Ukraine as it is right now, as diverse and beautiful as it is. I would say like that.
I get it. Thank you for your answer. I really liked your points about Crimea as a part of Europe as well as Ukraine. So you emphasized really important things.
Thank you so much. And maybe there are some other questions on the letters, on the people, on something else, because like I forgot about my internship, honestly, in all of this context and everything else. Maybe like some representations abroad or anything else. If anyways, if anything interests you, you can forward your questions to organizers. I believe it's gonna be fine if you do that, and they will forward it to me. In any case, you will get not only the presentation but also the list of addresses where you can write letters to. More details how to write letters with all the rules. And a lot more details about people and about different things. Maybe also about Crimea, so you can learn what is Crimea in order to, firstly, because that's what these people would like to. That's what Apas, Nasiba, Bogdan, Khatija, and other would like you to do. They would like you to know about their homeland. Why is it special? What about it? About legends about Khan with a stone and four heart. They would like you to know these legends. So I would also perhaps add something about it because so you know what is the heart of Crimea, what is real Crimea, not the castle which you might see a lot, which is called Lastочкине Гнездо, which is not Crimean Tatar thing, which is not indigenous to the land, but Russian. So you'd see the real Crimea, the thing which all of these people would like you to do. So yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. In case you'll have any further questions, you can forward everything to organizers. I will answer everything. And yeah, and you'll get all the information. Thank you so much. Uh, Wait a second, I see something in the chat. Дякую. Дуже вам дякую. Thank you so much. Yeah, and eventually, I would also like to do a few things. So if you're interested in other things, how to, let's say, how to cooperate with Ukraine, with Ukrainians, how to get to know more Ukraine, more everything Ukraine, there is a thing which is called responsibility checklist. You can find, by the way, the QR code. In this QR code, you might find another QR code, how to write letters to political prisoners. Some Ukrainian products, let's say more Ukraine, and about the activity of Rebuild Ukraine ambassadors. So I would be very happy if if you write letters, get to know more Ukraine, get to know more Crimea, because again, that's why these people are in the places they are, because Russians want to hide the real Crimea. But the goal is to spread, to share the real Crimea, the real Krim, the real homeland of mountains, sea, and the Han with 4 and stone heart. So yeah, thank you so much. In case any of you have any further question, as I said, you might send everything. I wish you a good evening and have a nice evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Liudymyla. Yes, you can, of course, every time write to CDN and we can forward the questions if you have, and then we will, yes, you're registered with emails, so we can send all information to the emails. Thank you very much, Liudymyla, and please follow CDN page so you know about the 2 next webinar of this series and also about some other activities that we will have prepare soon. And follow our website on the EcoSite campaign. Thank you very much again for coming, and yeah, see you soon.